When Auburn went and claimed 7 new national titles in 2025, I made a video on it and how legit I feel each one of those were. And then, of course, Alabama came to mind. Then I started to wonder, who else is worth a deeper look? My answer? Everyone. So that's exactly what the hell I'm going to do. I'm doing a video on every team that has ever claimed a national championship. Let's get chronic. Prior to the college football playoffs and BCS national title game, we relied only on the polls to determine the national champion, despite the Bowl Coalition's attempts to better things for a few years. The polling system failed many times, with as many as 4 to 6 teams in contention that never even played each other. This often resulted in many split national championship years. Go back a few more years to 1965. Prior to that year, some polls voted on their national champions before the bowl games were even played and then saw their champion lose the final game. Go back even further. In 1936, the AP poll is created and is often the most respected poll for many years to come. But prior to that, we have a wild, lawless 67 years of college football where many or no teams called themselves national champions, and a lot of these teams didn't claim national titles in this era until more modern polls and systems went back and retroactively named them national champions. Confused yet? You should be. While the AP poll is often the benchmark for a champion from 1936 to 1998, I would still argue that point. If the AP named you champion and nobody else did, that smells a bit fishy. Personally, I tend to side with what a majority of the polls say. So if the AP poll says you're the champ, but like 11 others don't, I rethink the situation. And that's just me. You are free to do or think whatever you like. And of course, any titles won through the playoffs or BCS national title game are automatically 100% legit from the start of the video, even if you disagree with the selection committee. And on the flip side, any that claim a separate title outside of those parameters are ultimately complete bullshit, whether the selection committee screwed that team or not. History is history, and I respect that fact. For the purposes of this channel, I'm only going to go by what the school actually claims. I have broken my tiers into 4 sections: 100% legit, debatable but fair, I see your argument but no, and then just complete bullshit. In this one, and with the first few I post, we're going to lump some together that only claim one. We will start with Navy and their claim to 1926. And before we even get into it, there were 5 national championship claims this season, so we will sort that out in a moment. Navy beat everyone on the schedule until they tied Army 21-21 in the final game to finish 9-0-1. Now this season happened before rankings, so it will be hard to compare teams on schedule strength, so all we can really do is compare records to the other 4 champions here, and then hear their case and see where I think Navy fits into the argument. So here's the quick rundown. Stanford tied Alabama in the Rose Bowl to finish 10-0-1. Conversely, Alabama tied Stanford in the Rose Bowl to finish 9-0-1. Lafayette went 9-0 with dominant performances, and finally Michigan went 7-1 with a loss to Navy. Right off the bat, we should clearly throw out Michigan for not only losing a game, but losing a game to one of the other teams in question. It should also be mentioned quickly that most of these teams outscored most of their opponents greatly and shut out the majority, so that doesn't create much separation either. Now I want to look at one last thing before I put this title on my legitimacy tier, and that is who exactly named who champion. Navy was named champion by the Bowen system and the Holgate system. Both were mathematical formulas based mainly on strength of schedule. Lafayette was named champion by Park H. Davis, a former coach of the school and the only one to even mention them, so respectfully, let's drop them. Stanford and Alabama are the most commonly accepted champs, being selected as co-champs by the majority, and rightfully so, having tied each other. This is all kind of a big mess, and while I'll later call Alabama and Stanford 100% legit and definitively more so than Navy, I can't completely discredit Navy either. I call this one debatable but fair. Maryland came close a few times in this era, but firmly claimed 1953. The team entered the season ranked number 9 and went on to record 6 shutouts and beat number 11 Ole Miss 38-0 and number 11 Alabama 21-0 to finish the regular season ranked number 1 at 10-1. However, in the bowl game, they were defeated 7-0 by number 4 Oklahoma. The Terrapins were still named consensus national champions, as national champions were named before the bowl. Some other selectors, including retroactive selectors, have named Notre Dame and Oklahoma as a champion that season, but neither the Irish or the Sooners claim a share of this title themselves, so if they're not going to argue it, neither am I. While I would have loved to see Maryland go 11-0 or Oklahoma or Notre Dame argue their share, they don't, and by default, I have to just go 100% legit. This season is one of the handful that changed the naming champions before the bowl practice in 1965. Kentucky, coached by fifth-year head coach Bear Bryant, claims the 1950 national championship. Yes, in football. The Wildcats entered the year ranked number 13 and got all the way to number 3 at 10-0 before losing 7-0 to number 3 Tennessee. They impressively defeated number 1 Oklahoma 13-7 in the Sugar Bowl to finish 11-1. This is another example of premature championship ejaculation.
I said, wait a minute, wait a minute. Wait, first of all, you're not going to speed past that like you didn't just say what you just said.
Oklahoma was named consensus national champion after going undefeated in the regular season before losing that game. Tennessee was also named national champion by a few polls and beat this Kentucky team. Princeton also claims the title despite being ranked number 6. Now, unlike 1953, Oklahoma, Tennessee, and Princeton claim these titles alongside Kentucky. Let's start with Princeton. While 9-0 is great with a ranked win over Cornell, polls have them too low to be realistic here, so let's throw out the Tigers. Now, we could compare Tennessee and Kentucky's common opponents, but there is no need as they lost the head-to-head even though Kentucky beat the one team the Vols lost to, Mississippi State. As unfair as it is with the naming of champion before the bowls, consensus is consensus, and I won't discredit Oklahoma, who beat number 4 Texas and number 16 Nebraska in the regular season. Tennessee also finished strong in bowl season with a win over number 3 Texas 20-14 in the Cotton Bowl while ranked 4th themselves. I'm not going to slap a label on them yet until their video, but we won't discredit them either. So with all that said, why are we even considering Kentucky? Who picked them as champ? Jeff Sarragan did. He is a sports statistician whose formulas have been used as part of USA Today's selection process and even factored into the BCS, but is primarily used for the NCAA basketball tournament. While some of that sounds good and well, one thing is clear. He didn't actually name football national champions at all. That alone is enough for me to call this complete bullshit. However, the Wildcats beat the consensus national champion, but were ranked number 7. Even today, you wouldn't become number 1 by beating number 1 from that low. 1950 Kentucky. I see your argument, but no. Detroit. Finally a team that I'm not likely to piss anyone off with. Mostly because their last season of existence came when my mom was only 4 years old. The Titans went 9-0 and shut out 7 of their opponents, including Michigan State. Impressive enough, I suppose, but remember, no actual rankings, so for strength of schedule, you just have to go off of who were powerful teams at the time, and Detroit didn't play many. Both USC and Georgia Tech were named national champions, and both schools claim it. USC went 9-1 with a 0-0 tie with Cal being the only hiccup, but their schedule was a lot stronger than Detroit. Georgia Tech went 10-0 with a Rose Bowl win over that very Cal team. We can settle the dispute between those teams later, but I'm sure you already have a good guess. Detroit was named champion only by Park H. Davis, and even contradicts himself as he also named Georgia Tech as his champion. Detroit, I see what you were going for at 9-0 and everything, but no. If I'm seeing things correctly, Dartmouth is the only Ivy League school to claim this few national titles with only one in 1925 outside of Brown, who claims 0. Which is crazy because the Ivies made up a lot of powerhouses in the early days before the conference actually existed. In that season, the Indians, as they were then known, did great. They outscored all opponents by a combined 340-29, which included 5 shutouts and wins over Harvard, Brown, Cornell, and Chicago. Now, one writer described the season as having no clear champion, as there were 5 dead-even teams in his eyes. But let's try and wade through them the best we can. While that writer said 5 teams, there are only 3 that were ever named. That being Dartmouth, Michigan, and Alabama. To make this even easier, the Wolverines don't even claim this title, so they've taken themselves out of the conversation for us. Alabama went 10-0 and beat the holy hell out of almost everyone they played, shutting out everyone except Birmingham Southern and Washington. The latter was the final game of the Rose Bowl, where the Tide won 20-19 in the famous game that changed the South for football. While Alabama has many selectors name them the national champions, and rightfully so, their schedule was not any more difficult than Dartmouth's, but they got the benefit and glory of playing and winning the Rose Bowl, which they only got because Tulane turned down the invite to it. I don't feel like we can punish Dartmouth here just because they didn't go to a bowl, so while I can't give them the 100% legit tier because that's clearly Alabama's, spoiler alert, I will go one notch below and say debatable but fair. And there we go. If you feel I was unfair or missed a piece of info, go ahead and make your case in the comments. And remember, this is just one guy on YouTube who did some research and gave an opinion. I'm sure I won't change any fan base's opinion on the titles they choose to boast about.
Jerry, just remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
This has been College Football Chronicles, and I hope you join me next time.